Welcome to the Bible Book Club. Now, some of you have asked if you can give to the podcast, and for the first time ever, the answer is yes. Bible Book Club is officially a nonprofit, and you can give to it. So, what are you giving to? Well, we're rather simple in our structure. Heather, Buck, Haley, and I do this in our free time. That means all of your gifts will be used to reach new listeners. Currently, the podcast has grown by word of mouth and just $1,000 a month of personal funds used to reach new listeners through digital ads. But think about how much we could grow the podcast in 2025 if you gave and we doubled or tripled that monthly spend. Ponder the math and consider giving today so that we can reach more listeners like you. We will put the link to donate in the show notes. Thank you for listening and giving.
This is the Bible Book Club,
the book of 2 Chronicles.
Welcome to the club. Last time in chapters 13 through 16 of 2 Chronicles, Abijah took the throne, but only for 3 years. His greatest accomplishment was a victorious battle against Jeroboam, king of Israel. Asa followed Abijah, and he was one of 4 good kings. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, including removing idolatry and trusting God for victory in war, most notably against 1,000,000 Ethiopians. His trust in God then slipped later. He bribed the king of Aram to help him in a war against Israel, and his son Jehoshaphat succeeded him as king.
The chronicler's point in this story is to present to the exiles the story of a faithful but not perfect king, in the hope that his story will inspire them to be faithful too. Scene 1, Jehoshaphat seeks God.
2 Chronicles chapter 17. Jehoshaphat, his son, succeeded him as king and strengthened himself against Israel. He stationed troops in all the fortified cities of Judah and put garrisons in Judah and in the towns of Ephraim that his father Asa had captured. The Lord was with Jehoshaphat because he followed the ways of his father David before him. He did not consult the Baals, but sought the God of his father and followed his commands rather than the practices of Israel. The Lord established the kingdom under his control, and all Judah brought gifts to Jehoshaphat so that he had great wealth and honor. His heart was devoted to the ways of the Lord. Furthermore, he removed the high places and the Asherah poles from Judah.
So for the record, Jehoshaphat is the 6th king in the Davidic line. Like his father Asa, he was one of the 4 good kings who followed David. His success is attributed to the fact that he sought God and followed his commands, rather than the now idolatrous practices of the kings of Israel.
And I think it would be a good idea to remind ourselves and remind everybody that, remember, there are 2 factions of Israel. Mm-hmm. The north is Israel and the south is Judah. And Jehoshaphat was the king in Judah, not Israel. Yes. And that's why we're saying he followed the God of Judah, not the gods of Israel, because they were doing idol worship.
Yes, but in this episode, we are going to have
well, there are
kings in the line of Judah who follow the gods of Israel. So yes, it's going to get messy. Now, despite following David in his commitment to the Lord, Jehoshaphat made a foolish mistake that almost brought down the Davidic line through an alliance with Israel. Scene 2, Jehoshaphat at first does what is right.
Verse 7. In the 3rd year of his reign, he sent his officials Ben-Hail, Obadiah, Zechariah, Nethanel, and Micaiah to teach in the towns of Judah. With them were certain Levites, Shemaiah, Nethaniah, Zebediah, Ashael, Shemiramoth, Jehonathan, Adonijah, Tobijah, and Toab Adonijah, and the priests Elishama and Jehoram. They taught throughout Judah, taking with them the book of the law of the Lord. They went around all the towns of Judah and taught the people. The fear of the Lord fell on all the kingdoms of the land surrounding Judah, so that they did not go to war against Jehoshaphat. Some Philistines brought Jehoshaphat gifts and silver as tribute, and the Arabs brought him flocks, 7,700 rams and 7,700 goats. Jehoshaphat became more and more powerful. He built forts and store cities in Judah. and had large supplies in the towns of Judah. He also kept experienced fighting men in Jerusalem. Their enrollment by families was as follows. From Judah, commanders of units of 1,000. Adonah, the commander with 300,000 fighting men. Next, Jehohanan, the commander with 280,000. Next, Amasiah, son of Zikri, who volunteered himself for the service of the Lord with 200,000. From Benjamin, Eliada, a valiant soldier with 200,000 men armed with bows and shields. Next, Jehozabad with 180,000 men armed for battle. These were the men who served the king besides those he stationed in the fortified cities throughout Judah.
So Jehoshaphat starts with his priorities in order. The first thing he does is to send his officials to teach the people the law. Wow, that's unusual. Way to go, Jehoshaphat. The people, remember, were totally dependent on preaching. Books were not a thing yet. The priests had scrolls. When I searched, there were only 3 occurrences where it actually noted that the Levites went throughout the land to teach. So, way to go, Jehoshaphat. It was their job, the Levites' job, but it says something about Jehoshaphat that it was enforced. The result was that God blessed the land. The fear of the Lord fell on even the Philistines, and they paid tribute to Judah, which again, we don't hear much about that with the Philistines. Judah grew strong, and Jehoshaphat used the wealth to build up the nation with forts, supplies, and a large military. It was a great start for him. Scene 3, Jehoshaphat's foolish alliance with King Ahab.
Chapter 18. Now Jehoshaphat had great wealth and honor, and he allied himself with Ahab by marriage. Some years later, he went down to see Ahab in Samaria.
Okay, so pay attention, everybody, because this is like as the world turns in the kingdom of Judah. So Judah and Israel have not been on good terms since Israel divided. And the Omri dynasty had most likely made Israel even more threatening. That is why at the beginning of this episode in chapter 17, verse 1, it says that Jehoshaphat strengthened himself against Israel. In his early years, Jehoshaphat did the right thing. He strengthened Judah. Yet here, some years later, he chose instead to become allies with Israel and King Ahab, a king known for his power, apostasy, and corruption. Fear was most likely the primary motivation for doing this. Jehoshaphat's fear drove the temptation to do something he knew was wrong. He could have trusted God for Judah's security, but the alliance apple was so tempting that Jehoshaphat took it. Then he gave it to his son Jehoram. Jehoram's bite out of that apple was spiritually fatal. He married Athaliah, the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, the Bible's most wicked couple. Athaliah spread her idolatrous poison to her husband and throughout Judah, killing the covenant as she went. And all the spiritual good Jehoshaphat had done for Judah died. But that wasn't all that Athaliah did. Jehoshaphat's failure to trust will prove to be deadly in our next episode. Little did he know that the apple contained the poison that would kill his great-grandchildren and wipe out the line of David, but for one small boy. What had Jehoshaphat been thinking, encouraging such a marriage for his son? The chances were slim that an evil, idolatrous couple like Ahab and Jezebel would raise a godly daughter. But the ancient culture of alliances through marriage was a mistake many kings made. Even the wisest King Solomon succumbed to the tradition, and so did Jehoshaphat. Now, for more on Ahab and Jezebel's story, listen to season 11, episode 12, or start reading in 1 Kings 16 with the beginning of the Omri dynasty. Omri was Ahab's dad, just so you know. For more on Jehoram and Athaliah's story, listen to season 12, episodes 6, 7, and 8, or start reading in 2 Kings 9. Back to our story. Some years after the marriage of their 2 children, Jehoshaphat goes to visit Ahab. Maybe he went to chat about their newly married kids. I don't know, or the birth of a grandchild. Who knows? But they are in-laws now. The visit was yet another mistake of his.
Now continuing in 2 Chronicles chapter 18, verse 2. Ahab slaughtered many sheep and cattle for him and the people with him and urged him to attack Ramoth-Gilead. Ahab, king of Israel, asked Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, "Will you go with me against Ramoth-Gilead?" Jehoshaphat replied, "I am as you are, and my people as your people. We will join you in the war."
So Ahab is not stupid. He rolls out the royal red feasting table, but not without reason. He had a motive, and he was persuasive. He wants Jehoshaphat to go into battle with him against Aram. Judah was nowhere near Ramoth-Gilead or Aram. They were up in the north. And while Judah's traders would have to pass through the area on the road to Damascus, it really didn't matter to them who they paid tolls to, Israel or Aram. This was really not Judah's fight. Jehoshaphat, though, after much food and probably drink, is all solicitation. He capitulates and agrees to go to battle with Ahab. Then, as if he suddenly remembers God, he backtracks and asks,
Verse 4, But Jehoshaphat also said to the king of Israel, First, seek the counsel of the Lord. So the king of Israel brought together the prophets, 400 men, and asked them, Shall we go to war against Ramoth-Gilead, or shall I not? Go, they answered, for God will give it into the king's hand. But Jehoshaphat asked, Is there no longer a prophet of the Lord here whom we can inquire of? The king of Israel answered Jehoshaphat, There is still one prophet through whom we can inquire of the Lord, but I hate him because he never prophesies anything good about me, but always bad. His name is Micaiah, son of Imlah. The king should not say such a thing, Jehoshaphat replied.
This scene is almost comedic to me. So I imagine that they served a lot of food at this diplomatic dinner and a lot of wine, because it kind of sounds as if these old kings are drunk or close to it. Jehoshaphat first agrees to the battle as if it were just a picnic. We are family, of course. We will join you in war. Then, oh, my bad, my God, and I have a rule. I have to ask first if I can go. You got any prophets on hand? Then bossy Ahab yells, Bring me a prophet. Bring me all the prophets now. And 400 prophets march in. Where does this happen that you just happen to have 400 prophets nearby? Then Jehoshaphat leans in and, I imagine with blurry eyes, studies the strange prophets and says, Don't you have any God prophets? I'm not sure how he knew they weren't God prophets. Maybe they were something else. I don't know. Then Ahab responds like a child. Yeah, we got one, but I hate him. He never says anything good about me. And then Jehoshaphat tisks him like a little mother. You shouldn't talk like that. We don't say such things. It's just like two old men. The whole conversation seems, like two old men arguing in their folding chairs on a street corner somewhere in New York. I don't know, but that's how I picture it. However the conversation went down, Jehoshaphat gets credit for 3 things. He asked for a prophet, he recognized Ahab's prophets as false prophets, and he didn't give in until Micaiah was called. Scene 4, the one real prophet versus 400.
Verse 8, So the king of Israel called one of his officials and said, Bring Micaiah, son of Imlah, at once. Dressed in their royal robes, the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, were sitting on their thrones at the threshing floor by the entrance of the gate of Samaria with all the prophets prophesying before them. Now, Zedekiah, son of Kenaanah, had made iron horns, and he declared, This is what the Lord says, With these you will gore the Arameans until they are destroyed. All the other prophets were prophesying the same thing. Attack Ramoth-Gilead and be victorious, they said, for the Lord will give it into the king's hand.
So the last scene was a comedy scene. This scene is a circus. The 2 kings are royally decked out on thrones where everyone can see them near the gates to the capital, which was the common meeting place. All the prophets are prophesying before them. Like I said, a circus. All the prophets means 400 of them. And in my mind, I'm like wondering, does that mean they all talk at once? Are they dancing around? Was it choreographed or chaotic? I have no idea. Then the circus master steps up, raises iron horns, and uses them as a visual to illustrate the victory they will have over the Arameans. Now, it's not as loud or impressive as a military flyover, but it gets everyone's attention. And all the other prophets chime in, attack, attack, attack. Meanwhile,
verse 12, the messenger who had gone to summon Micaiah said to him, Look, the other prophets, without exception, are predicting success for the king. Let your word agree with theirs and speak favorably. But Micaiah said, "As surely as the Lord lives, I can tell him only what my God says." When he arrived, the king asked him, "Micaiah, shall we go to war against Ramoth Gilead, or shall I not?" "Attack! Be victorious," he answered, "for they will be given into your hand."
Ahab's messenger is no fool. He wants to avoid the king's anger and live to see another day. So he tells Micaiah, look, all 400 prophets agree. We need to attack Aram. So for once, can you just go with it and agree? Well, Micaiah is not a fool, nor is he going to be forced to speak foolishness out of fear. He responds sarcastically to Ahab with exactly what Ahab wants to hear. Sure, you go for it. Attack. Ahab gets angry. He knows Micaiah is being condescending.
Verse 15, the king said to him, "How many times must I make you swear to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord?"
Now, I imagine at that moment, the room froze. The circus got serious. Ahab wants the truth. Oh no, Micaiah's going to give it to him. Everybody's holding their breath because, of course, then Ahab's going to get mad. So everyone grows quiet and the air becomes so tight, no one dared to breathe. Micaiah straightened, leaned in, focused his eyes on the king, and he laid down the truth for whoever dared to pick it up.
Verse 16, then Micaiah answered, "I saw all Israel scattered on the hills like sheep without a shepherd. And the Lord said, these people have no master. Let each one go home in peace."
In other words, Ahab, you're going to die in this battle. And your people, your sheep, will finally have peace because they have needed a shepherd. And you are not that. You are a cruel master. God is done with Ahab. Therefore, Ahab is done.
Verse 17, the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "Didn't I tell you that he never prophesies anything good about me, but only bad?"
And Ahab's only response is childishly foolish. He turns to Jehoshaphat and basically says, "See, I told ya, he hates me."
Verse 18, Micaiah continued, "Therefore, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne with all the multitudes of heaven standing on the right and on his left. And the Lord said, who will entice Ahab, king of Israel, into attacking Ramoth Gilead and going to his death there?" One suggested this and another that. Finally, a spirit came forward, stood before the Lord and said, "I will entice him." "By what means?" the Lord asked. "I will go and be a deceiving spirit in the mouths of all his prophets," he said. "You will succeed in enticing him," said the Lord. "Go and do it." So now the Lord has put a deceiving spirit in the mouths of these prophets of yours. The Lord has decreed disaster for you.
So I often picture scenes of angels having conversations in heaven and God going, wait, watch, this is going to happen. And this is why, because this is clearly a vision that Micaiah has of spirits or angels having a conversation with God. Micaiah is still in the prophecy zone at this point and continues with his vision of a conversation between God and his heavenly spiritual assistants, is what it said. God asked them, who would entice Ahab so that he'd be killed in battle? They're like strategizing how he's going to die. God's assistants throw ideas. God is just amused. I don't know. They're brainstorming about this. God likes one, the spirit who says he will use Ahab's very own false prophets, which is fittingly ironic. Ahab has insisted on living by his own prophets, and now he will die by them. The bottom line is that Ahab will perish because he refused to believe in God. So the purpose of this scene is more for Jehoshaphat. Can he see the truth? And will he act on it? Now, note to us, Ahab is not the only one who will perish because of foolish denial of God and the resulting delusions. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul warns this.
2 Thessalonians 2, verse 10, they perish because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, and so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth but have delighted in wickedness.
We all have the proof we need to believe and be saved. If we refuse, we will be led into believing a lie and wickedness.
Now back to our story in 2 Chronicles chapter 18, continuing in verse 23. Then Zedekiah, son of Kenaanah, went up and slapped Micaiah in the face. Which way did the Spirit from the Lord go when he went from me to speak to you? He asked. Micaiah replied, You will find out on the day you go to hide in the inner room. The king of Israel then ordered, Take Micaiah and send him back to Amon, the ruler of the city, and to Joash the king's son, and say, This is what the king says. Put this fellow in prison and give him nothing but bread and water until I return safely. Micaiah declared, If you ever return safely, the Lord has not spoken through me. Then he added, Mark my words, all you people.
So this Zedekiah guy with the horns, he kind of slaps Micaiah and accuses him of, being a false prophet when he was really the false prophet. Poor Micaiah gets assaulted and then thrown in jail. Zedekiah, Ahab's prophet, slaps him and sarcastically implies that Micaiah spoke falsely. To which Micaiah responds, Well, we shall see. If the king walks out of the battle alive, then Micaiah is not a prophet. I don't have it. Scene 5. No surprise, Ahab dies.
Verse 28. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will enter the battle in disguise, but you wear your royal robes. So the king of Israel disguised himself and went into battle. Now the king of Aram had ordered his chariot commanders, Do not fight with anyone, small or great, except the king of Israel. When the chariot commanders saw Jehoshaphat, they thought, This is the king of Israel. So they turned to attack him. But Jehoshaphat cried out, and the Lord helped him. God drew them away from him, for when the chariot commanders saw that he was not the king of Israel, they stopped pursuing him.
In this scene, King Jehoshaphat is beyond foolish. He almost looks idiotic. Ahab is afraid of being killed, as Micaiah prophesied. So he says he doesn't like Micaiah, but he secretly is kind of believing him. So Ahab tells Jehoshaphat to wear the royal robes while he will be in disguise. Then the enemy will think Jehoshaphat is Ahab and kill him instead. Why Jehoshaphat is okay with Ahab's idea is baffling. And yes, he has a close call and almost dies, if not for God stepping in. Hopefully, it was a wake-up call to how ridiculously foolish it was to agree with Ahab and be in alliance with him.
Verse 33, But someone drew his bow at random and hit the king of Israel between the breastplate and the scale armor. The king told the chariot driver, Wheel around and get me out of the fighting. I've been wounded. All day long, the battle raged, and the king of Israel propped himself up in his chariot facing the Arameans until evening. Then at sunset, he died.
So, of course, the disguise did nothing to protect Ahab. A random arrow hit him right between the sections of his armor. Neither the disguise nor the armor could protect Ahab from God's will.
Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails.
That one's for us. Like Ahab, we have been forewarned. Scene 6, Jehoshaphat's consequence.
2 Chronicles chapter 19. When Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, returned safely to his palace in Jerusalem, Jehu the seer, the son of Hanani, went out to meet him and said to the king, Should you help the wicked and love those who hate the Lord? Because of this, the wrath of the Lord is on you. There is, however, some good in you, for you have rid the land of the Asherah poles and have set your heart on seeking God.
And here's what I said in the beginning. The chronicler wants the people to see that even a good king makes mistakes. So the Lord sends a prophet named Jehu to set Jehoshaphat straight. And this is exactly what our chronicler is trying to do by retelling the story, is to show the people that, yes, there are good kings who try to do what was right, but they can make mistakes. In this alliance, it was a mistake, but he didn't go after idolatry or anything. So according to Jehu, there is some good in him.
Continuing in verse 4, Jehoshaphat lived in Jerusalem, and he went out again among the people from Beersheba to the hill country of Ephraim and turned them back to the Lord, the God of their ancestors. He appointed judges in the land in each of the fortified cities of Judah. He told them, Consider carefully what you do, because you are not judging for mere mortals, but for the Lord, who is with you whenever you give a verdict. Now let the fear of the Lord be on you. Judge carefully, for with the Lord our God there is no injustice or partiality or bribery. In Jerusalem also, Jehoshaphat appointed some of the Levites, priests, and heads of Israelite families to administer the law of the Lord and to settle disputes. And they lived in Jerusalem. He gave them these orders: You must serve faithfully and wholeheartedly in the fear of the Lord in every case that comes before you from your people who live in the cities, whether bloodshed or other concerns of the law, commands, decrees, or regulations. You are to warn them not to sin against the Lord. Otherwise, his wrath will come on you and your people. Do this, and you will not sin. Amariah, the chief priest, will be over you in any matter concerning the Lord. And Zebediah, son of Ishmael, the leader of the tribe of Judah, will be over you in any matter concerning the king. And the Levites will serve as officials before you. Act with courage, and may the Lord be with those who do well.
All right, so Jehoshaphat recovers. He appoints judges throughout the kingdom, and he appointed Levites, priests, and family leaders to administer the law. He kind of gets back to business like he did in the beginning. So in scene 7, Jehoshaphat learns and turns. Every good king, David, Asa, Jehoshaphat, make mistakes. But Jehoshaphat learned from his battle mistakes, and he knows now that he must include God in his battles, even before he goes to visit somebody and make an alliance.
2 Chronicles chapter 20. After this, the Moabites and Ammonites with some Meunites came to wage war against Jehoshaphat. Some people came and told Jehoshaphat, a vast army is coming against you from Edom. From the other side of the Dead Sea, it is already in Hazazon Tamar, that is, En-Gadi. Alarmed, Jehoshaphat resolved to inquire of the Lord, and he proclaimed a fast for all Judah. The people of Judah came together to seek help from the Lord. Indeed, they came from every town in Judah to seek him. Then Jehoshaphat stood up in the assembly of Judah and Jerusalem at the temple of the Lord in front of the new courtyard and said, Lord, the God of our ancestors, are you not the God who is in heaven? You rule over all the kingdoms of the nations. Power and might are in your hand, and no one can withstand you. Our God, did you not drive out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel and give it forever to the descendants of Abraham, your friend? They have lived in it and have built in it a sanctuary for your name, saying, if calamity comes on us, whether the sword of judgment or plague or famine, we will stand in your presence before this temple that bears your name and will cry out to you in our distress, and you will hear us and save us. But now here are men from Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, whose territory you would not allow Israel to invade when they came from Egypt. So they turned away from them and did not destroy them. See how they are repaying us by coming to drive us out of the possession you gave us as an inheritance. Our God, will you not judge them? For we have no power to face this vast army that is attacking us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. All the men of Judah, with their wives and children and little ones, stood there before the Lord. Then the Spirit of the Lord came on Jahaziel, son of Zechariah, the son of Benaiah, the son of Jeiel, the son of Mattaniah, a Levite and descendant of Asaph, as he stood in the assembly. He said, Listen, King Jehoshaphat, and all who live in Judah and Jerusalem. This is what the Lord says to you. Do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's. Tomorrow, march down against them. They will be climbing up by the pass of Ziz, and you will find them at the end of the gorge in the desert of Jeruel. You will not have to fight this battle. Take up your position, stand firm, and see the deliverance the Lord will give you. Judah and Jerusalem, do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Go out and face them tomorrow, and the Lord will be with you. Jehoshaphat bowed down with his face to the ground, and all the people of Judah and Jerusalem fell down in worship before the Lord. Then some Levites from the Kohathites and the Korathites stood up and praised the Lord, the God of Israel, with a very loud voice. Early in the morning, they left for the desert of Tekoa. As they set out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, Listen to me, Judah and people of Jerusalem. Have faith in the Lord your God, and you will be upheld. Have faith in his prophets, and you will be successful. After consulting the people, Jehoshaphat appointed men to sing to the Lord and to praise him for the splendor of his holiness as they went out at the head of the army, saying, Give thanks to the Lord, for his love endures forever. As they began to sing and praise, the Lord set ambushes against the men of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir, who were invading Judah, and they were defeated. The Ammonites and Moabites rose up against the men from Mount Seir to destroy and annihilate them. After they finished slaughtering the men from Seir, they helped destroy one another. When the men of Judah came to the place that overlooks the desert and looked toward the vast army, they saw only dead bodies lying on the ground. No one had escaped. So Jehoshaphat and his men went to carry off their plunder, and they found among them a great amount of equipment and clothing, and also articles of value, more than they could take away. There was so much plunder that it took 3 days to collect it. On the 4th day, they assembled in the valley of Berakah, where they praised the Lord. This is why they call it the Valley of Berakah to this day. Then, led by Jehoshaphat, all the men of Judah and Jerusalem returned joyfully to Jerusalem, for the Lord had given them cause to rejoice over their enemies. They entered Jerusalem and went to the temple of the Lord with harps and lyres and trumpets. The fear of God came on all the surrounding kingdoms when they heard how the Lord had fought against the enemies of Israel, and the kingdom of Jehoshaphat was at peace, for his God had given him rest on every side.
The chronicler comes to the end of Jehoshaphat's story with a battle that is a total contrast with the impulsive, foolish battle he fought with Ahab. When Heather read that, we could have been back in Joshua. That was exactly how a battle is supposed to go down. In this battle, Jehoshaphat resolved to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord told him, do not be afraid or discouraged, just like with Joshua. And then while they were singing and doing things like like at Jericho, that God did all the work. He did all the fighting. This was a lesson for the exiles. It is a lesson for us to ponder. In the daily battles of our lives, do we pray to God first? Do we fully rely on Him for the outcome? Or do we forge ahead in our own strength? I had to ask myself, am I wasting energy on things that would have fallen into place without me even lifting a finger if I had only gone to God first?
We've got merch. Great news! Bible Book Club sweatshirts are here, and they're only available while supplies last. So if you want to snag yours, go to BibleBookClubPodcast.com/store. They're only going to be available while supplies last, so hurry and get yours. And if you're enjoying the Bible Book Club, why don't you share it? And then you and all your friends can listen and discuss. New episodes drop every Monday.